Okay, hello everyone. We are live. Welcome to A Better Way, a sustainable approach to wellness. Today we are discussing how to manage your stress in 3 minutes while sitting. I am Dr. Reed Winnick from Dentistry for Health New York. I am joined with Tammy Kolschmidt from Thermography for Health New York, and we are here today with Michael Gilbert. Michael is an expert in body conditioning and integrating mind and body.
Yes, we want to acknowledge and congratulate all of you from the bottom of our hearts for caring enough about your personal health to be here with us today. We know your time is precious, so we thank you. And you should all know that you are the disruptors to mainstream medicine.
And like us, your goal is to make a difference for yourselves, your family, and your community. We want to acknowledge your greatness because obviously nothing happens without you being present and listening to these educational webinars. Um, I have a question. Do you want to be less fatigued and more productive while sitting? Then you've come to the right place. So for the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to discuss ways to quickly manage your stress while you're sitting, as most of us do most of our days, especially these days. At the end of the webinar, we are going to answer all your questions, and we'll have some special gifts simply because you are here.
Yes, so Dr. Winnick, could you put up the next slide with the four questions?
Yep.
Well, these are four questions I'd like each of you, if you could, write them down, but really pay attention to, because they will help navigate you, as they have helped us, stay on track with what you're feeling and experiencing in your body. Especially if you have like a nagging body issue that you're not paying close attention to, eventually it will become chronic. So the first question is, what is your sitting situation? And what I mean by that is, how long are you sitting? How are you sitting? In what position? How often do you sit? And what might you be feeling while you're sitting? Michael, do you want to just touch on that for a moment?
Well, I like to make clear that sitting is a sport, and it's just a metaphor to get people to realize that, like any great athlete, you have to apply the mind, attitude. Otherwise, your body falls into bad habits. And that's what we're going to do here, is to show people that, constant attentiveness to upgrading our sitting habits is really important. And,
I love it.
You got to think of it as an athletic event at some point, and not just pop yourself in a chair and think my body takes care of me, because it doesn't. Make sense?
That's great. I love that. The sport of sitting.
So, yeah, well, that's we're bringing hygiene to sitting as much as we bring hygiene to our mouth, or hygiene to our eating, or it's paramount to understand that our behaviors are directly related to our mind, and the body's not going to sit there and say, "Oh, behave, mind, behave." We got to sit there and understand mind is important to body balance, like any balance, right?
Yeah. Question number 2, what consequences are accumulating in my body? See, what you don't realize is, by the end of the day, when you feel fatigued, that is a consequence of inflammation. Go ahead.
Yeah.
To add to that.
Absolutely. And therefore, if we're not practicing some sort of adaptation, we could say brushing our teeth. Read dentists, we're taking care of our hygiene, and that means I have to understand that my body needs to help to make sure that we keep adapting. And if we don't, we end up with inflammation, and that could be anywhere in the body. Joints, when they start yelling and screaming at you, going, "Pay attention to me," and we don't pay attention because we're caught up in the show we're watching, or getting my job done, or the things we get caught up with, then the mind is over focused on one thing and we forget we have a body. And then of course it's going to have inflammation or fatigue. And that's a sign of accumulating a bad moment that we haven't taken care of.
So I imagine that as we get through this webinar, I mean, it comes down to reducing tension in the body.
Yeah.
Would you say that's an accurate way of looking at it?
And absolutely. And think of tension as friction. If the friction's building up, then the parts wear out quickly. We want to lower tension, pressure, inflammation. They're all the same things. They're quantities that through the mind we can lower, and then the body stays healthy.
Okay. So the next two questions. What are the solutions that can turn sitting into a positive situation? So these are some of the solutions we will cover today. But
Yes.
you do want to ask yourself is how would your day be if you had some good solutions? And question number 4,
Absolutely.
how would it feel if the nagging body issues turned into chronic pain? And how would your day be if by the end of the day you were chronically feeling lower back pain or chronically feeling neck or shoulder pain? So this we are also going to touch on because the consequence of not dealing with it becomes a nag, it then becomes a chronic blow up type of solution.
Right.
Great. Well, like most of you or many of you watching this webinar, the three of us have also experienced many health challenges through our lives. In fact, I would say many challenges. And we've learned that it's a long and winding road to health and being free of disease or pain. And just when you think you're there, like I thought I was there a few years ago, you stumble on a rock and you realize something else is now needed. And I hate when that happens. I want just everything to go perfectly. It just doesn't seem to go that way, though.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, I guess it's called getting older. But I remember as a kid, I was sick. I was
But
tired.
you're not old. You're not old. Just getting
Thank
better.
you, Michael. That's why you're here today. You keep telling me that. You're right. I'm not old. As a kid, I was sick and I was tired. I had constant stomach pain when eating, and it went on for 15 more years. And I had, in that time, numerous surgeries. They removed body parts. They gave me medication that I was on for such a long time. And none of the things they were doing to me had any long-lasting benefits. And all I wanted to do was really enjoy my days and get through dental school. And I was often wondering how these smart doctors who were tops in the field did not have any solution to my stomach pain, my night sweats, and my fatigue. And long story short, because there was a long, windy road, with the help of functional medicine, I got totally better and I got healthy. I was able to lead a normal, healthy life. And I then realized that the traditional medical model was flawed. All was going well. I was doing great until about 3 years ago. I threw my back out while skiing, and I came home in a wheelchair.
A nightmare for all of us.
Yes, especially you, Tammy. I get it. And I went and I saw my back specialist for the first time, who after reading my MRI with my bulging discs gave me the option of surgery. And once again, I'm faced with the question: do I accept this traditional medical model, which I grew up knowing that it's flawed, and do I let them treat me like a broken machine, or do I look for a better way? And that in my heart, I knew was out there.
See, and that's the hard part, is really honoring your heart. And that's what you did. And that's a great story of somebody that really, held on and kept saying to themselves, my body has the capacity and I have to figure out a better way. And I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry to interrupt.
Well, I learned your language after all these years, and honestly, I'm still learning it. But I decided to see Michael, and Michael really, he taught me, I would say, at least 2 things. Number one, and he's always going to tell you that besides not being old, he'll tell you that you're not broken. And he'll tell you, and Michael taught me that my mental attitude is key to my well-being and my healing. And I've always considered myself to have a really great mental attitude, but I never knew that you can take your mental attitude and apply it to when you don't feel great, and that will accelerate your healing. So I would say under Michael's care, I probably missed 1 day of work, and I had a full recovery in about 3 months, which most pain specialists, with what they diagnosed with my problem, what they said it was unheard of.
And that wasn't easy to do those 3 months, but you stuck. You kept knowing that you could improve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
So taking an integrative approach is really important, and I really push the idea with you is that using a foam roller at home and tennis balls and taking the things I showed you. That's what I did. Is I showed you a bunch of things to do at home as well, and to support that integrated approach, because bodies are always over-regulating, which we'll get into as we discuss this more. And your mental attitude is there to make sure that you lower the tension pressure, not over-regulate. And that is where you become and feel a sense of well-being, because your body becomes calmer.
Yeah.
And it is an integrative approach. I mean, you have to use many different things. I'm adding the value and getting people to understand how to take that integrative approach, because we get stuck in thinking, what way do I need to do? And really, it's an ongoing conversation of trying, a much fuller process than just trying to think, fix the machine,
Right. Or use this machine, or use that. It's really,
Right.
It's half mental.
Yeah.
Yes, at least, if not more.
Yeah.
So,
And it's also one of the things that makes Michael different is that he does give you tools. He gives you things to do at home, so that it's not always about going to therapy 3 times a week. There's
right. And that's important, is that I even validated Reed on some of the things he was doing and said, yes, this is helping you, because he wasn't sure. And knowing that the things you're doing are paramount to helping you as more, and getting other things to put in there is really a key statement of realizing, I'm not broken. I'm not old. I may be older, but I'm not, broken. So Tammy, you've been there, right?
Yes. I was just gonna chime in with that. So one of the points in my life when I had the most chronic pain was when I was working as a dental hygienist for 10 hours a day, every day. It's intense work because you're working in a tiny little area of the mouth. You're also taking in the pain response of patients, which energetically is really tough to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially if you're an empath.
Yes.
So I had such pain in my head, my neck, my shoulders, elbows, wrists, hands, fingers. The whole upper body was just on fire. And what we learned in hygiene school was something called ergonomics, and you had to sit a certain way for every patient. Like there was the only right way was these ergonomics. And when I met Michael and he started to look at my work, he showed me how I could sit differently for each patient, so that I was using a different foot, a different arm, a different twist. And in between each patient, he would give me little things to do that only took, maybe 40 seconds. So by doing all that and changing the way I was doing my repetitive stress job, my body started to release. And so some of the things we're going to talk about today are going to help you deal with the repetitive stress of sitting.
Yes.
I definitely get that, Tammy. I have basically the same situation, but I don't have different positions. But what I do with my appointments when treating patients is I try to stand up for even a minute during the appointment when I have that free moment to do it. And I walk around, and it could be even like 5 feet back and forth. And what that tends to do is maximize my ability to adapt to my situation. And Michael, you have such a different approach when dealing with chronic pain. I'm just curious, what was like the essence or your thinking or that aha moment you decided that there had to be a different approach to helping the chronic pain patients you were seeing early on in your career?
Well, I've had many aha moments, but it did start when I was much younger, when I hit the wall of chronic pain. And it can be mental, it can be emotional, it can be physical, but at any point in my life, I've had those problems. And I admit to experiencing all three in flaming colors. I think all of us had. And one such physical example was when I broke the state record in high school running the mile. It helped get me into a top 10 college and a possible, I mean, they were discussing the huge fantasy, I feel, Olympic, goals, because I broke this record at such a young age. I was in high school. But the intensity of practice was beyond belief. And I was over practicing because I had this, ideal in my mind. And at one point in college, my knee swelled up like a cantaloupe. And that ended up and became crutches, which became constant injections of all sorts of drugs, which became taping my knee and having me run, even though it was swollen, which then ended up being this possibility of risky knee surgery. And here I was, not old. And I'm scared to death that I'm an old man. And I'm 19, 20 years old. And that's when I had to give up these ideals of being this, hardcore athlete, which I realized was just too hard on my body. And I started doing integrative, kind of things. I did yoga. I got acupuncture. I did Rolfing. I actually even changed my diet to lower inflammation because my knee looked horrible. And it did take time, but over 2 years of doing this, I ended up getting out of knee pain. And I realized I wasn't broken. And that was a big thing for me. And it was reaffirmed again, mentally, emotionally, in different ways that, taking the approach of thinking I'm broken all the time was such a stress factor. And, me realizing my true nature is to apply my mind and find ways to get through things. And I shouldn't just immediately default to pain and say, oh my God, I'm broken. But my knee is now, I'm much older and I'm running up and down stairs better than people that are younger now. I'm going to be 62 this year. And people look at me and say, how do you move so easily? And I say, because I'm adapting, just like Reed said. Adapting is really important. And that the body doesn't do it for you, it's the mind. So
yeah.
That's interesting, Michael. One thing I would say that, people ask me, like, what does Michael do? And I have to say he's a massage therapist because that's his license. But he can do so many more things than just what a traditional massage therapist would do for you, which I think, he's really under talking what his training is. And I know it's probably taking him years to really fine tune his touch and what he does. He can just look at you and tell you like what's going on, which is amazing. But one thing that struck me when I started to see Michael, and I never understood it, because while you're there in the session, when I lie down, I go to sleep, and he never lets you sleep. He wants you awake. And I'm like, why do you want me to wait? He goes, because I want you to listen to me, because I need to explain and talk to you. And now in hindsight, I realize he's talking so much because he's trying to retrain my mind and have me think about the fact I'm not broken and how I can heal that way by getting my mind straight, and I can then heal faster. So
yeah.
that's another key, to Michael Gilbert.
So let's get into the meat of this. Let's look at these 4 situations. The first situation that I want to pick apart is what everyone experiences with sitting is facial tension and eye strain. And I know Dr. Winnick, as a dentist, you have a lot to say about that. And of course, Michael, when we get to you, I want you to comment on the consequence of that and also show us the solution.
Okay.
So, facial tension and eye strain.
Okay. Well, as a dentist, I can say I can say a lot about that. And I see a whole bunch of patients that come in and they have head and neck issues, and a lot of them are getting it treated, but they don't really know what got them there. They don't know the cause and effect. And what we find a lot with these patients is they have something out of balance with what we call the craniomandibular complex. And that means cranium, and mandibular, it's this lower jaw and how it functions and balances with the upper cranium. And people seem to know that they're grinding and clenching, but when they do that and then they get pain in the jaw over here or in the muscles, they say, oh, I have a problem with my jaw. They don't have a problem with the jaw. What happened is the muscle is over-regulating, not that there's a problem with the muscle. So you need to figure out a way to decompress, decrease that tension in that area, which I hope Michael discusses after. Another problem that we see with patients is they have what we call forward head posture. And how does that happen? Well, if your mandible is too far back, and there's a number of reasons why that happens, but if it's too far back, think of your head like a bowling ball on a stick, like on your spine. And if it's not balanced, the bowling ball or the head tends to move forward. Well, when your head moves forward like this, the brain tells the eyes that they have to be horizontal with the ground. So what happens is your head moves up. So you're forward and the head moves up, and that causes this curvature in the back. And this curvature now puts more tension on more of your muscles, and then gives you this chronic neck pain. So you're going for all this treatment to adjust this problem back here, not realizing that it really started with the mandible being in a posterior position. It's too far back. Another important concept would be tongue position. So if you're sitting here with me and you ask yourself, and your mouth is closed, and you ask yourself the question, where is your tongue? Is it down or is it up? The majority of people who have this craniomandibular dysfunction, their tongue position is wrong. It's down. And we prefer the tip of the tongue to be up behind the front teeth, not touching the front teeth, but on that hard little ridge where your gum starts. And if your tongue is down, you need to retrain your tongue to be up, so you lift your tongue up. Eventually, it'll stay up on its own because there's a little suction cup. It's called Donder's cavity. So when you put your tongue up, it makes that clicking sound. So when you raise your tongue, it always stays there, which eventually will happen after you train the tongue enough to be up. Now, why is this so important? Well, it's important because when your tongue is up, it helps your mandible rest in the normal physiological position, which helps the muscles rest or deregulate. But it also allows for proper nasal breathing, because if someone is a mouth breather, the mouth is open. Well, if your mouth is, even if it's open and you raise your tongue to the roof of your mouth, you have to breathe through your nose. And by breathing through your nose, what are you accomplishing? Well, first of all, you're not breathing through your mouth. Mouth breathers use your accessory respiratory muscles too much, and they become overregulated. Hence, they put pressure on the back of your neck and your face. But when you don't breathe through your nose, you lose the capacity to warm up the air that goes into your lungs, filter the air, and you also produce nitric oxide by breathing through your nose, and nitric oxide is healthy for your heart. So these are all really important points to keep in mind.
Well, I'm imagining that's going to affect eye strain also if you're having neck, jaw tension.
Sure. Well, think about it, because your eyes are in your skin of your head, and the skull is not one big bone. There are these sutures, so the skull is, let's just say it's malleable, but don't quote me on that one, okay? But it moves a little bit, and so if you have all these muscles pulling too hard, right, then you're changing ever so slightly the shape of the bones around the eyes, and that changes the shape of the eye, changes the lens, so it can give you more fatigue in your eyes.
Yes. So what we can do is to understand that, like practicing your tongue at the top, behind the roof of the mouth, and they teach these types of things in yoga as well, is that you're training the body to be in a calmer energy state. And that means we have to train it. So like a lot of the things he's saying, We could train it to be in a over-regulated, the jaw, I'm tensing, I'm breathing through my mouth, or we can train it to deregulate and be in a calmer energy state. So some of the things I show people, and this is the thing I send out as a free gift, is you really got to work your head to lower it. Putting your tongue behind the teeth makes the body or the whole system calmer. Making sure that you're not overusing your eyes. So calming the back of the eyeball or calming the tension in the forehead. And if you can't feel how you can calm your inner head, you can always massage the outer head. And these are things that we need to train the body. Every day for a long time, I always sat there and would make my body relax when I was with clients because I didn't realize how hard I was working to understand them. And I realized I could really train my body, just like Reed's saying, whether it's the tongue or softening the eyes or the forehead or the jaw. But it is a training to get the body to a calm energy state.
So, Michael, you're saying that the training starts first to touch yourself, because by touching yourself, the mind then connects to your fingers and it connects to your head, and now you're starting to feel your muscles. And how often do you suggest, let's say, like I can sit in front of my computer for hours, how often do you suggest that I would do this to help me start to lower my stress levels?
Well, it's even what you mentioned earlier about working on you when you came to me. I was getting you to feel what it is to move the body to a calm energy state. Putting the tongue in the roof of the mouth, calm energy state. Using doTERRA oils, calm energy state. Taking the time to be mentally aware of how hard people work to get the same job done. I mean, I don't need to sit in front of a computer and stress my face, but it doesn't know that if the mind doesn't step in and train it. So it's an ongoing process, but it's not labor intensive once the body learns the habit, and the habit is a feeling. So it just takes, a couple weeks of focus. And that's where you have to step in and pick, you know what, I'm going to work on not creating all this tension in my face and make it a priority for 3 weeks. And then the habit gets ingrained in the nervous system. And instead of having the bad habits, you have good habits. Good habits, calm move the body to a calm energy state. And that's what I did with you. I mean, I took your body, for whatever reason, got stuck in a high energy state, and we moved it to a calm energy state. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to interject with one thing, and then we're going to the next situation. So one of the things I do is I take the heel of my hands and I put that over my eyes and I apply pressure. It's like a suction cup. And I can feel my eyeball literally just kind of sink into the socket. I do that several times a day while I'm working on the computer. And I mean, it's wonderful. It's like now that's something I wasn't going to show, but that's brilliant. And people need to be validated on the things they're doing, because they could be doing something and not realizing it's actually helping the body move to a calm energy state. Right. Thank you. So situation number 2, we are calling it red wine and espresso. And it is literally the amount of tension and focus that's happening on one side of your body and not so much on the other side. So I'll let Michael explain that.
So coffee and red wine are wonderful ways to regulate. I have coffee in the morning and I have red wine at night. Metaphorically speaking, it could be, chamomile tea, and I have black tea in the morning, chamomile tea. The point is, we're always helping the body regulate upward, but we always have to recognize then we need to help the body regulate downward. It's not that inflammation is bad. It's to think of inflammation as a tool. I mean, coffee, I'm getting myself to wake up and then I go to bed. So it's the same thing with the body. If I'm always sitting in a certain posture, which is what you were talking about earlier, if you're always in the same posture, ergonomically speaking, because we're idealizing this posture, then we build up inflammation in the body in those parts that are being overworked, just like my face. If I'm not training myself to move my body into a calm energy state, we get stuck. So if I'm sitting on my right hip all the time working on somebody's mouth, then my right hip is going to look at me, or my right shoulder is going to look at me and go, I hate you, because it's overtrained. Mm-hmm. So there has to be some point when the mind has to step in and go, okay, I need to use a different position and still get the same job done. And I'm not going to say that's easy. I'm assuming that you had to sit there and go, but I want to do the same position, you know? And you had to really kind of start paying attention. But after a while, it was easy to do, correct? I mean,
Yeah.
okay,
Also,
and that way the body didn't get stuck in a high energy state, you know?
right. And I feel another high energy state is when people are on the phone. So can you describe it in terms?
Yes. It's what I call taking turns. The body is not designed for perfect posture. It's a postural intelligence. In other words, taking turns means that on a certain period of time, I may sit on my right side and I'll be on my iPhone like this, right? And I can, you know, have a heated conversation. But at some point, I need a switch, and then I put my weight on my left hip and I put the iPhone to my left ear. So let's say on Monday, I'm always standing on my right leg and holding my iPhone and doing everything and sitting on the right side of the couch to watch TV, because on Tuesday, I'll switch to the other side. That way I don't have to worry about every moment. I can just do it per day. And then on Tuesday, I'll use the iPhone to my left ear all day long, sit on my left hip. I go home, watch TV. I'll lie on my left side. And then Wednesday, I go back to my right side. And Thursday, I go to my left side. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I just don't pay attention. But we're helping the body take turns. It doesn't do it for us. And that's the mental attitude part, is to, you know, train ourselves in habits that make the body move to a calm energy state. And that, you know, just takes, you know, good metaphors at work. And that's what I call taking turns. A good metaphor. Bodies are designed for taking turns to move to a calm energy state.
Right.
So in red wine and espresso also, we have the slouching and we have the sitting tall, which is different from right side and left side. It's standing while we sit.
Right. If people are always sitting up tall, then the weight is into certain muscles. At some point, you want to be able to slouch. And I have a case study, but Reed, say what you're going to say, and then I'll give the case study.
With you mentioned the piano player, I believe earlier, where, you know, if society teaches us to do certain things all the time, and as a piano player, you have to sit a certain way and look really good, and you know, there's a time when you just can't always do that because your body can't handle that, is what you're saying.
Right, and that's where I had this was a big eye-opener for me like 20 years ago. This lady came to me. She's an amazing, well-known pianist, travels all over the world, and she had pain in both shoulders. She tried many different, we called them alternative medicine back then, and she made it clear that she didn't like being touched, but, you know, a lot of alternative medicine is to help you feel your body, and she was really uncomfortable with being touched, so it didn't help her. So she was perplexed. She did MRIs and X-rays, and she went to see 3 different doctors, and in the end, they told her she needed arthritis because she needed a surgery because she had arthritis. She came to me because she heard about me, and I looked at her, and she's telling me, I don't like being touched. So I'm kind of perplexed because I'm sitting here going, but I touch. So I'm sitting here, and I don't want to lose, you know, it's the beginning of my career, and I don't want to lose, you know, making a client. So all of a sudden it dawns on me, why don't I teach her to slouch? Yeah. And so I spent 2 hours because she hated slouching. And the next day she called me up in an aesthetic, you know, conversation on the phone and said, you won't believe it, but my pain was like, you know, 60-70% less today, this morning when I got up than any time ever before. And I was like, oh, that's great. And then I hang up the phone and I go, what? And it took me time to be able to explain that. And then it dawned on me, you know, her shoulders were playing the piano as a habit, even when she went to bed. So she had this beautiful habit of posture for the piano, but she was taking it to everything she did. And then, you know, the body doesn't know to sit there and go, I'm overworked. So she came to me, and just because I was going to honor not touching her, I ended up having this insight, teach her to slouch, but I didn't think it was that big of a deal. So that was a big learning experience for me, is to realize that, you know, we can get stuck in body postures as a habit and overstrain different parts. Even though it's the perfect posture for playing the piano, it was not the perfect posture for going to bed.
Yeah, I can tell you when I am doing hygiene, I don't do it as often anymore because I'm doing more thermography and body talk. But I have this point when I'm doing certain teeth that instead of sitting up tall and straight, which is my natural posture, I actually round my entire upper body and lift my elbows on purpose. I get all rounded.
Beautiful.
And
See, that I call.
And then after I finish those couple of teeth, I come back up to where I'm tall.
That's intelligence or mental attitude applied to posture. And
yes.
This is
so
what you recognize.
If you think
not applying posture to us, but our mental attitude to posture.
Right. And if you think about what you're doing when you're sitting, whatever your job is, think about having your hands on the keyboard. If you're always upright, I mean, that's great, but then take a moment and flop over.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do the opposite. Do the opposite.
And you can even scrunch your face more to get rid of the tension, just as much as you want to lower and then release. And then, but the point is, there's no right way to get there. It's getting the body to adapt. So I can increase my tension to decrease my tension, or I can focus and decrease my tension. But there's a lot of different ways to do that.
It all takes awareness and practice. But if you're taking notes, you'll be able to coach yourself through these different little tips.
Yes.
We're running out of time. So I want to get to the next situation, which is we are not broken. And you did kind of comment on that a little bit in Dr. Winnick's situation. And of course, when I had my rotator cuff issue, your message always was, I know you're in pain, but you are not broken. So that intensity, that mental attitude really helped.
Yes. If we take the approach, and I'm not saying that parts don't break, but when we take the approach that pain only means broken, that's when we run into high stress, overregulated, because fear is, I can't do anything about it. So it's important to understand we are not broken, and then look at many different ways of approaching the problem. And surgery is one of them, but it shouldn't be the way.
It's not the way. Talk a minute about tuning, because this is a concept you bring up a lot.
There's many times when, I'm going to use the idea of tuning a car, or tuning a violin, but when I tune a violin, I minimize friction. And tuning a violin is an ongoing mental process, because I can be the best violinist, but no matter how many Brahms or Beethovens or jazz or bluegrass, I still have to keep tuning my instrument, because the mind is there to keep bringing the body into balance. And the reason is bodies are always falling out of balance. They're not designed to be in balance for you. They're designed so you keep bringing them into balance and play beautiful music. And that's where we have to get people to understand. We don't want to make our habits rigid. We want to make them adaptive.
Right. But Michael, you have to explain that whole theory when it comes to a car. Why most people drive cars, and we all have cars that eventually fall apart. And the analogy you make about tuning a car, and can you please explain that?
Okay, I know we're short on time, so I'm going to make it quick, but you have to realize I could have the best car in the world of all the new parts possible, but if I don't tune it, move it to a high order balance, I'm going to drive it and it's going to break down quickly. Versus my friend who has this beat up Ford that's, I don't know how many years old, looks like crap. He hasn't put new parts in, but he's been tuning it. Yeah. And tuning is an ongoing process. Every 3,000 to 5,000 miles, you have to go and get it tuned. And why? Because tuning is a mental attitude of moving a car to a higher order balance. And that is a habit that we can develop. But we have to recognize that habits don't help us if we're not helping our habits, right?
Right. And a side note, that's not really a Michael Gilbert philosophy, because anytime you see someone who has a really old car that has 150,000 miles on it, and what do? We ask them, how did you do that? He says, oh, I kept it tuned up.
Yeah.
I kept it on, I tuned it constantly.
Which means they're lowering the inflammation, friction, and stress. And we have to realize they're all the same things of too much. So when we lower the friction in the fluids of the car, it's no different than in the body. That's why, eating good foods or taking supplements that lower the friction. Being attentive to, balancing the different parts. And some things aren't out of balance. Changing position, not letting one part of the car do all the work, right?
Right.
So,
And,
Well,
and from the doctor point of view, it's about lowering inflammation in the body.
Yes, lowering inflammation would be the idea of lowering the friction of the car. And most times when we do that, we realize that no matter how, I mean, like my mom's 85 and she's very good at taking care of her body and moving it to a calm energy state. She has her routine. She watches what she eats, and she's not experiencing any chronic pain. Does she wake up with pain once in a while? Yes, and then she takes care of it. But just her MRIs and X-rays, she's 85, are not going to look good. So if we take an MRI X-ray as the truth, it's just another point of reference. And that doesn't mean I'm against surgery. I'm not. But I think there's so much more we can do before we think that's the only option. And I know so many people that pick that option and then they have worse pain in a completely different way. And then I have to get them to listen to their body and lower inflammation.
Right.
It has to be addressed.
Right.
One more point I want to bring up, because this was
Sure.
the fourth point, was our mental attitude and the tension that can happen in the body because of it, but also the intensity of the focus that we have all day long mentally. And when we think our body is just sitting doing nothing, it's the opposite. It's really being overworked because of our mind.
Yes, our mind regulates. The bodies don't regulate them. The body doesn't regulate itself to a higher order balance without a mind. So bringing the mind into play is paramount. And people need to understand that the nervous system and the immune system are the same thing. I know in science we like to pull them apart, but if the nervous system is in a high energy state, then your immune system isn't working, nor is your nervous system. But as you move them both to low, the nervous system is designed and the immune system to work best in a low energy state, a calm energy state. And that's what we see with great athletes and great performers. If they're not in a calm energy, it doesn't matter how talented they are, they're not going to perform well.
Right.
Right.
You can't do it.
And that's what separates the top players from the average great players.
Yes, absolutely.
That little degree where they're mindful of what they need to do to get into that state.
Yes, and that's an ongoing process of wanting to win longevity. I mean, I look and feel that longevity is going to be my history because I'm always moving my face to a calm energy state. I'm moving my breathing to a calm energy state. I'm taking turns in the tasks of life, so I keep my body in a calm energy state. I don't idealize standing on two legs. People tell me all that. Well, I thought I was supposed to stand on two legs. That's great for exercise, horrible for daily living. You got to keep teaching or helping the body take turns. Sit up tall for a while, slouch. Move to the right side, move to the left side. Change your bed. Put your pillow at the other end of the bed for a month. You'll find out your body goes, thank you.
Yeah.
So if your body is like a pressure cooker, right, and it's always full of pressure, and there's a little
always full of pressure
pushing the valve, and the pressure gets released, that pressure cooker will last longer.
Yes, absolutely. That's why pressure cookers have release valves, so that when the mind's caught up yelling on the phone, but the body has, release valves, but it's not set up to take care of you. If the mind's caught up and yelling on the phone, your pressure cooker can't release enough energy. The mind has to step in and go, why am I getting so intense? I can just make my point, in a calmer way like this instead of getting so intense, it's like.
And that's when, and we'll move on, but that's when becoming mindful is so important.
Yes, it develops better habits that move a body mentally, emotionally, physically to calm energy state. That's the immune system and nervous system. They work best, as you said, between an A1 and an A2 athlete. Absolutely.
Great.
And if you look at the GIF that Michael created, the video, which you'll all get,
right.
Those are great ways for you to reboot your system if you've been sitting after an hour or an hour and a half. So watch that when you get a chance, and you'll get.
Again, they seem like simple tasks, but if you do them with a clear, calm mind, it's a big bang for the buck.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So the reason we are bringing this webinar to you is to as you see, to disrupt the pattern that you may be in, and our goal is to bring you, the mind body, to a calm energy state. Then we are helping you celebrate this higher energy states of life without suffering. So these 4 questions are disruptors because they help you stay on your path. The 3 of us are leaders in health and wellness. And these are the things that we do to stay healthy and balanced. And we want to share our experiences that work for you.
Yeah, so I want to share one more quick thing before we take questions.
Sure.
One of the things that I love to do, which actually lowers cortisol, your stress hormone, and helps raise oxytocin, which is your pleasure feel-good hormone, is something that I call angel whispers. And how I came up with this was when I was a child, I was chronically ill. As a matter of fact, I was always in fight or flight because I couldn't breathe. So my grandma would take a feather and she would caress my skin, my arms, my neck, my face.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yes. And my mom, she would just tickle my face and my arms just so that I could get to a point where I could breathe better, until we would get like to the hospital. So another thing I used to do is constantly pick feathers out of their feather dusters. I was enamored with feathers. So anyway, I came up with this protocol called Angel Whispers that I use for my breast health patients who come to me for thermography. It helps them develop a healthier relationship with their breast while it lowers that cortisol, the stress, and raises the pleasure. So you take a feather and you literally caress your skin, your breasts, your face, your neck, while you say these angel whispers. Dr. Winnick, could you change the slide? So how I came up with these 3 statements was I did a body talk session on the collective feminine energy. It was like, what do women need to hear and feel the most? So these 3 statements that you see on the screen, you have clarity whenever you ask for it, ease is with you as you work and as you sleep, and believe in yourself, trust in your knowing, and have faith in the outcome. As you stroke your skin with the feather, if you silently or quietly repeat these to yourself, you're connecting your mind to a calmer state, and you're literally planting seeds for the 3 things that, I mean, I'm sure men need this as much as women, but when I did the body talk session, it was really for the feminine collective. But it's amazing. So that is one of the gifts that you'll get from me. And also just knowing that you can schedule with me for a half an hour body talk, where we'll tap into the angelic realm and you can hear what your specific angelic messages are for you.
Yes. And that's how, and I'm going to do the same with the stuff for people that need help with sitting and stuff like that, right?
Well, what are you like? So they know they can schedule with me for body talk. How would they? What would you do with a patient for Zoom appointments right now?
Well, we can do Zoom, phone. It'll say it in the thing that gets sent to everybody with the present. But the point is, understanding how the mind moves the body to a higher order balance is paramount, and there is no right way. I mean, this is not a question of whether angels even exist. It's a question of using angels as a way of getting you to a calm energy state, and what works for one person may not work for someone else.
Exactly.
And this is me validating and getting people to rethink stress as an opportunity, not blame the mother, this, that, or the other thing, but to realize that the opportunity of calming the inner body mentally, emotionally, and physically is an ongoing process. So it becomes a conversation. Some people, it could take 1 or 2 sessions. Some people 5 or 6. I record everything. I send them poses, so it's not an exercise routine. It's an ability to move the body to calm energy state, because that's how the nervous system and the immune system work best. And having enough tools that work for that person is a discussion. And having somebody be able to discuss that with them and help them pick the right ones for them and understand that they're working is really important. And then I'll get them to use a tennis ball and other things. But again, it's a process of having a discussion versus thinking, oh, let me know that's what people do. They come to me and say, what modality do you do? And I say, well, you want to ask a carpenter, you have a great hammer, come work on my house, and that's great. Bring only your hammer. Well, you might need nails, but everybody approaches healing and well-being as if it's like, what tool?
Yeah.
You would never hire a carpenter if they weren't bringing a bag of 40 tools. I mean, what tool is right tool? There isn't a right tool. Balance doesn't go tool. It goes bring 40 tools and we'll work together. And that's what's important, to get people to understand you have to work with me and I work with you. It's not the tool.
Right.
Does that make sense? I mean, that's
beautiful. Well put.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's great. Oh my. So, so what if this information could actually create a breakthrough and give you peace of mind? I mean, that'd be great. And it doesn't seem very complicated. And these are like potential pieces of the puzzle to keep yourself and your loved ones healthy during this unsettling time. Something else you can do. So this is wonderful. Thank you, Michael. I learned even more today than being with you on your table. So this is great. So just to
that's because you weren't asleep.
I didn't want to say it. I was waiting for you to say it. So if you want to contact Michael Gilbert, you can get Michael at his, you can call him on his phone. His phone number is 646-202-3865, or you can email him at mrg169@icloud.com. And to receive your free gift, video gift from him, you'll click on the link on the webinar replay that you'll be getting after the webinar, or you can go to www.thermwellness.com. That's thermwellness.com. If you want to contact me, Dr. Winnick, and we're giving out complimentary oral microbial assessments. Why are we doing that? Because if you have hidden infections in your mouth, under your gums, you don't know they're there, and they can also create that inflammation, which we all learned is just body tension, that you need to address. And you can't address it unless you identify it. My phone number in the office is 212-973-9425. Or if you want to visit my website, you can go to www.TFHNY.com. And you can contact Tammy Kolschmidt to schedule a remote body talk session. You can either call or text her at 917-743-3767, or you can send her an email at hello@thermographyforhealthny.com. And there's more. You can enjoy the Angel Whispers that Tammy just discussed, and to receive that free gift, you can click either on the webinar reply page. You'll see a little button there once you receive that. And you can also go to www.thermwellness.com. Tammy and I are firm believers in using water irrigation to clean under the gums, in addition to a toothbrush. To get a HydroFloss water irrigator, which is magnetic, which is very effective. You can call them up, go to the website, and you can use the discount code 14031. If you want to do your own testing for the microbes in the gums, you can go to the Oral DNA company, which is www.oraldna.com.
Cool.
I just wanted to say that you allowing us to be a part of your lives is really so important to us, and being able to communicate our life experiences with all of you is also so important to us. And I just want to give you some background on on who we are and us do all these webinars. And my hope is really to motivate and inspire you to take action and achieve optimal wellness through sustainable dentistry. And in reality, though, the information is really worthless unless you take massive action and apply what you've learned today.
Yes, and for me, the reason I do what I do, and the reason I've found myself at a holistic point in my life, is to alleviate suffering. Suffering has always been the thing that has kept me motivated, actually, to keep going.
Well, I love to educate, so that's why I want people to reach out, even if they have a question. There were many times in my life that I was told I was damaged, yet by seeing differently, really seeing differently and digging in, I realized broken is not the common denominator. And I learned how to reach a higher true sense of true healing. And that's what I want people to see, that they have that opportunity as well. There's much more going on when we understand mind as a part of the puzzle. And that's what people tend to leave out, and that's that carpenter story. It's not a tool, it's bringing many tools. And that means all of us helping. That's like the three of us. We help people realize there's more going on than just thinking it's a machine. It's like, that doesn't make sense. So
That's great. Thank you. We're up to almost approaching the 60-minute mark. We do have more time to answer your questions, and I promise you we'll stay on as long as you need us to, within reason. But let's just briefly go through our recap slide. Michael, can you read your points up there? Can you see them?
My points, yeah. Lighten up, lighten the load, relax the face, and breathe. That's a key statement. You have to keep realizing the body doesn't do it for you. You have to do it. You have to bring your mind in there and keep reminding the body to move to a calm energy state. Taking turns, shifting from side to side. Again, the body moves to a calm energy state because I'm changing my posture, not idealizing it. Red wine espresso is to really understand that your ability to slouch is as important as your ability to sit up tall. And there's many things in life that demand the coffee approach, and there's many things that demand the red wine approach, and shifting between the two is a key statement. That's true mentally, emotionally, and that's true in relationships. If I come home angry, my mate listens to me, and then there's another day my mate comes home angry or overwhelmed, and I listen to her. We're shifting back and forth. That's the coffee, red wine. And the smallest thing is focus. The smallest thing has the biggest bang, and that's important. We tend to forget that, we really do forget that. Bringing home some flowers can make a big difference.
Thank you, Michael. I'll give you my address. Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. We are not broken. And what I learned, we are not old.
Yeah.
Grinding
We
or
may be
clenching.
older.
What?
I said we may be older, but we're not old.
I love that. Thank you. Grinding or clenching your teeth creates jaw pain because the muscle is over-regulating, not that the muscle is the problem.
Right.
A posterior mandible causes a forward head posture. Proper tongue position is key to balancing the craniomandibular complex.
Good habit development.
What?
I said that's a good habit to develop, yes.
Yes. Proper tongue position promotes healthy nasal breathing and disrupts the mouth breathing pattern. Key. And of course, hidden gum and tooth infections create systemic inflammation, which affects your immune system and increases your risk to get a disease.
Okay. For me, learning postural intelligence while working, which is everything that Michael talked about, taking turns, slouching, sitting, can greatly reduce chronic pain and inflammation. And you can schedule with Michael to understand what is unique for you, right? What is unique for your repetitive stress habits. Lower your cortisol and increase in your oxytocin literally means a decrease of stress and inflammation. And you can do that by feathering your skin and whispering your angel whispers. And you can use my free gift as your guide to get started with feathering. And you can also schedule a body talk session to hear which messages might be unique for you.
Great. Okay, let's look at the question and answers. Tammy, can you pull them up?
Yeah, you know, I'm looking.
Let me see. Okay, so here's a question from Jim. What is the best and most cost-effective stand-up desk to get? Michael
Oh,
can answer that.
that I wouldn't be able to answer here online. You don't need a complicated desk. You need something that, I mean, there's this one desk, I don't know the name of it offhand, but it's something you can put on your desk and it moves up. So you don't have to like, you could be even in a chair that you can move up and down relative to the desk as well. It's just changing the height. But that's something you could text and call me and I'll get it for you.
Thank you. I knew you'd have an answer, but
Well, it was,
I understand. Feel free to call him
okay,
privately, okay, Jim?
yes.
Stephanie wants to know, where can we find Michael's videos?
So
Oh,
the free video will be on the gift page, which you'll get as a replay when the webinar, when we email the replay. But you can also see it if you go to THERM, THERM, wellness.com. It's there.
it'll be on the website.
Yeah.
Great. Sujata, hey Sujata, has a question about looking for a better chair for back pain. Can you help her? Sujata, you have Michael's number, call him up. And I think that's a good idea, Michael, for her to
Yes,
talk.
yes, for those types of things, because I've had people get chairs before and they get caught up in thinking the chair is going to do it for them, and then it solves the problem for a couple of weeks, and then the pain's coming back, and it's, you know, you really have to learn how to adapt. It's not always the best chair.
Okay. And Jim says, thank you, you're welcome. And Patricia says, hello, and thank you for such a great webinar. You're welcome. I specifically
Wonderful.
I specifically am challenged with agitation when spending even what would be considered shorter amounts of time on the computer. I can't focus. It sometimes feels like my brain cells are being pulled through my eye sockets. LOL, laugh out loud. That's how I'm saying laughing, not me. I got very fidgety. Oh no, I get very fidgety, and it's very frustrating because it feels like I'm getting nothing done. I don't know how to mitigate this. It feels very nervous system related. Thank you.
She's absolutely right. It is nervous system related. And it's important that people understand nervous systems are always releasing energy. And sometimes it comes out in very uncomfortable ways. It's like a colicky baby. I tell people, I work with colicky babies. I tell the parents all the time, the baby's not crying. There's nothing wrong. It's the nervous system that cries. It's the nervous system that can make us feel fidgety. And what is it doing? It has too much energy. It's dissipating it. And that's an important component that happens all the time. We need to step in and help it do a better job. And these are the things I'll discuss with you when somebody calls me or works with me, is how to figure out to do that based on the context of what's going on. But it has to be a conversation. It's just not a black and white answer to every person, like as if everybody's a machine.
Right. But start out looking at the video that you'll get from Michael. I watched it. It was so clear of what he's trying to explain. And that might be a great start. It's like reading the manual before you talk. So I would suggest you do that also.
Yeah.
I think I'm saying your name, Lalita. What is the optimal position to hold your phone up, especially when reading news?
Changing position. So optimal is not one body posture. So if she's using her phone, is she standing or sitting? I don't know. But the tendency would be that you hold it to one side of the body and you're reading. You want to shift. Yeah, you want to shift to the right, put your elbow on something and hold the phone up for a while. So you're holding it upward, supporting your elbows. And then after a while, you want to shift to the other side, because if you try and find some perfect posture, then you're using one set of muscles, excluding all those other muscles. And of course, they're going to fatigue. Muscles aren't designed for high load activity for any experience, for extended periods of time. They're designed to have a low load activity. So I use one muscle, it starts to speak, then I use another muscle, she has to move it around.
Great. Gloria has a follow-up to the chair question. Her question, I believe, is would the type of pillow be an individual thing also?
Yes, absolutely. So I have lots of people I've worked with where I'll give them an exercise that they can do literally very simply. It takes 5 minutes that re-regulates the lower back. And then they can use a different pillow as well. You don't want to use the same pillow every day.
Great. And there's 2 questions regarding sleep. I'll give you both of them. One is from Barbara, one is from Brenda. And then you can maybe put them to get the answer together.
Sure.
The question is, can you discuss changing sleep positions to help body stress and neck strain? And the other question is, what would be a system at night for the best sleep?
So the best system for anybody is to get the body to change its setup. And that's what I'm saying. Your body, if you sleep in bed and you always have the pillow at one end, after a while, and your clock and phone are next to you, you're always going to be looking in that direction. Maybe it's the right side. You overtrain the right side to be the place you adapt to. The point is to switch it to the other side of the bed. So I tell couples all the time, why can't you guys switch sides of the bed? Why can't you put the pillow at the other end? Why can't you? And therefore, the body gets trained in habits of adaptation. And if we don't, it gets stuck. So you could try different pillow heights. You could trying to get the body to be more adaptive means not using the same thing all the time.
Great, thank you. Looking for any other questions? Oh, I see something coming up. Hold 1 second, there's something in the chat, and then we'll see.
I just commented, one person asked, isn't it better to use a Bluetooth or the speakerphone as opposed to holding phone near the ear? And I said, well,
absolutely.
Using the speaker is best. However, you need to change which hand you use when you use the speaker.
Right, because I've gotten people that use headphones and then they don't realize they're always using the same arm and the same side of the body, and they get chronic pain in their shoulder because a phone over time is quite heavy on the body. Go ahead, Reed.
I know that, I'm not sure what Michael feels about this, but I know Tammy and I are not fans of Bluetooth.
Not at all.
Because we feel what we know, and it's up for grabs, is that it actually acts as an antenna and will give you more radiation in your head. Again, up for grabs to what research.
Well, let me add one thing to that. We don't have to prove direct cause and effect to understand load factors. You could have 5 load factors and that becomes a problem. So the Bluetooth may not be the reason, but if you have the Bluetooth and you're always anxiety ridden, and then you're using a phone on one side, then after a while you have this huge load factor that makes it really hard for the body to move into a healthy state of being because all your factors are turning it up. And that's why people can't understand migraine headaches. It's a load factor problem, not direct cause and effect.
So if Bluetooth causes an additional load, there's something called Bluetube, T-U-B-E, that is like a stethoscope, and you can wear that, and that would mitigate the issues of the radiation.
Yeah, there's also something called Safe Sleeve that you can put as a cover over your phone. That's what I have. So that mitigates a lot of the EMFs as well.
Right, thank you. But the best is always using the speaker or carrying your phone. Have the person you're with, have them carry it. And then you're totally clear. Okay. Let's see.
Another question is, what is good for chronic neck pain on one side?
That was Marjorie.
Yeah.
I would give somebody that has chronic pain on one side, they have to realize, let's say it's the right neck. You'd have to do some shoulder exercises, simple ones that I can give. You would also want to see the patterns of your behaviors that are dominant, because you may not realize that every time you're thinking, let's say it's my right side, I look to the right and I cock my head. Oh, wow, that's interesting. So again, there's a habit that's overtraining, but you're not realizing how subtle that habit is. Habits that become dominant overwork the muscle fascia system, and then we get this weird behavior because we didn't look the other way. I mean, so sleeping on the other side, trying to see the patterns is where I step in. We discussed these in detail.
Yeah. That's key.
Yeah. Cynthia asked, may we see all of you at the same time? Cynthia, the way things are today, anything is possible, so why not?
No, I think what she means is on Zoom, we're very small because the slide is the main
Yes,
Oh,
focus.
oh, I apologize. Well, I think this is the best we can do, Cynthia.
that's technology for you.
Yeah, but there might be a button above the pictures that you might be able to click. I'm not sure. But I appreciate you being on anyhow. Oh, David says, double click on any of the people and it expands.
Oh, yeah.
Yay.
There
Thank
you
you,
go.
David.
Yeah, and make sure you pick the most beautiful one, right?
Well, we know what that is, Michael. Okay. Well, I appreciate everyone hanging in there. We're 15 minutes over. Oh, wait, there might be another Q&A here. Hold on.
Well, I'm just going to say, anyone else that has questions, please don't hesitate to email me. Even if we talk for a few minutes, you'll get a better idea of how I can help you, because some of you have really specific needs, like knee pain, this. There are tools that really do help with mitigating inflammation without thinking you're broken.
Yeah.
Right. And there are specific sleeping positions that may work for you while others don't. You just need to
Yes,
be mindful of those and have someone discuss that with you.
yes, we're not robots.
Exactly. Okay, Michael, I appreciate you. I thank you. You were wonderful. I learned so much. And Tammy, as usual, you're great. I appreciate your help doing all these webinars and doing them together with you. It's always a pleasure. And I hope everyone has a great day. We will see you soon.
Yay. Bye.
You, mind is
Yeah.
paramount to help well-being. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Everyone say bye.
Bye.